cried the sparrow.
You're listening to the Sailing into Oblivion podcast, where we sit down with everyday people who do extraordinary things. I'm your host, Jerome Rand.
Welcome back, everybody, on this lovely night. Woo! Well, it's not quite night. It's getting close. Sun is about to set here, but it is obscured by the clouds that are rapidly approaching from the north, as we have a pretty big wind shift still yet to come tonight. The winds right now are from the southwest, turning west very abruptly, which is probably going to bring some rain. I have a feeling, by the looks of it at least. And then abruptly coming all the way around to the northeast for the next probably 24 hours or something like that, which will aid us in our southing. Today's February 1st. And we gave it our go. We gave it our shot. We pointed towards Bermuda. We were 400-something miles, 450 miles away when I was like, ooh, speaking engagement, not until 20th. That gives me more time. Let's go for it. And we had a good forecast for the first few days, and we were aiming right for it. But unfortunately, with this shift coming directly from Bermuda, essentially, and then turning into a giant calm patch, the last thing I want to do is motor for 24 hours straight just to get to Bermuda, just to be able to, I don't know, reprovision, stock the bar, whatever you're going to do, have a drink at the White Horse or whatever it's called. Tip one out to old Rutherford. I know he likes his dark and stormies out there, don't you, Matt? Don't you, Skip? Well, those thoughts got dashed once I updated the forecast this morning and saw the shift and saw some absolutely beautiful conditions about 4 days out from now. Essentially, our trade winds south of us by a few hundred miles are going to be filling in to the 16, 20 knot range, which would be great. And they seem to be blanketing everything all the way up to southern Florida, through the Bahamas and all that sort of stuff. So right now, the goal again would be to go back to either Fort Pierce or St. Lucie Inlet. And essentially, that lies about 800 miles to the southeast. We're currently just heading east of south. And, pretty soon we'll be able to charge. The only speed bump we have is coming in about a day and a half, and that is an abrupt calm patch. Kind of that steady, normal calm between the variables in the trades that develops out here, commonly known as the Bermuda High. And it wiggles and it jiggles and it stretches and shrinks. And yeah, unfortunately, we've got to go sit in it for a little bit. But it doesn't look like it's going to be a long-awaited turn. So it might be one of those things where we get into it, we spend 24 hours drifting, and then we go ahead and the westerlies fill in further north. We'll see. I mean, the nice part is the sea has drastically calmed, which is a very welcome thing. It was blowing pretty good, 20s yesterday, last night into this morning, and it kicked up the sea state pretty fierce by about midday. Shook the last reef out, ended up throwing the jib up, and now for the last hour or two, I've been just up in the cockpit reading the next Clive Cussler. I jumped into a couple other books. I like to go back and forth between fiction and nonfiction, just so I'm learning when I'm reading as well, not just enjoying it. I've always termed, the Michael Crichton, the James Patterson, Lee Child, all that sort of stuff is like junk food reading. It's fun. It's great. I dive right into them. I'm already hooked. I'm only 50 pages into this one. Luckily, there's about 800 pages, it looks like. But I like to sort of mix that up. I tried jumping into this other book about big trees, and it had me for a little bit, and then it just dropped me. There's a lot of really interesting little stories about these guys going out and basically pioneering climbing, redwoods and stuff, and sort of discovering what lies in the canopy, and then it'll go into some story about some person for a long time, and it's kind of like a bit of a snooze fest. I'm still going to read it because it definitely has those, but I figure, you know what? I'm not going to hold myself to any rules and regulations as far as what I read. And this next Clive book, I think it's The Treasure of Khan or something like that, is it's going to be a good one. I think they're on the hunt for Genghis Khan's burial tomb, so that could be pretty exciting. I love the Dirk Pitt novels. I love the Jack Reacher novels and the Alex Cross stuff. Like those three, they're just page turners. Oh my gosh, you just can't. Like right now, all I want to do is go read some more, but this is part of my job, so I'm here. I'm here doing the pod. Got to do that. But yeah, it looks like overcast skies coming in for sure, which is kind of a bummer. Tonight, Venus is in conjunction with the moon, and it's the crescent moon. Hopefully, this is just a front line of clouds and such, and it doesn't last more than a few hours. Sometimes you get lucky. I don't know. It's really warm out. I know that's going to change when the wind switches out of the north, but it's been such a pleasant day. Got a lot of sleep last night, but also had a good 3-hour session up in the cockpit of just stargazing. I mean, they are so bright right now. It was crystal clear last night. You can see absolutely everything, and the planets. It's just beautiful. And I did spy Saturn. So last night we had the moon, Saturn, Venus, Jupiter, and Mars all in a line. Just cruising across the sky. Super cool. Super cool. That's why we come out here, folks. It really is. It's one of the most breathtaking views of our celestial neighbors. Ooh. That must be a little note. That's a notification on my phone, actually. I don't know if you picked that one up, but it tells me when there's going to be the International Space Station flying over, or if there's something of note happening in our skies. It's kind of a neat little... It's one of the few apps on my phone that I allow sending me notifications. Drinking coffee like a fiend. Love this stuff. Other than that, status quo, really. After the cleanup yesterday, we're feeling pretty good. Bed's made. Got some good food in the belly tonight. As long as the wind doesn't get crazy on me over the next hour, I think I'm going to dive into taco night. I meant to do it the other night, but it was just a little too bouncy. It's nice and level tonight, and I got one avocado left, so I got to get that one before she shrivels up and turns into a prune and turns all brown and gross inside. So we're going to dive into that, but I think the only other subject of merit is that I have started the outline for the next book. Now, I know I have a couple of shelved books that are going to need some serious concentration. One, I think, is just out the door. The one about the Appalachian Trail is it's so boring. So boring. I think you really need to have some real writing talent to be able to make a story like that super interesting or funny or whatever, but a page turner, if you will. That's always my goal going into these things. But the other one that I have quite a lot, maybe 30,000 words or something in, is the book about going through the doldrums. But that one's going to require an ample amount of research and a little bit more sophistication than I think I have at present, or at least the time also to be able to really dedicate to it. Because that book, I'm really looking to have that come off as when you read it, you learn about my experiences going through the doldrums, but you also are going to learn about the doldrums and the mysteries and the history and the meteorology and all that sort of stuff. So that one, the nice part is, the words are there, the stories that I've put down. I just need to fill in the gaps with all that other stuff. But I think that is going to be for a time where I find myself, relegated to some sort of situation where I have a few months of quiet time, downtime, anything like that. I don't really know. But this next book that I have sort of been thinking about lately, in part thanks to James Hodge, because he was always pushing me, to just get some of these other sea stories out. Because we have, we get the trip around the world 2017 and 18. We've got the round the Atlantic attempted Northwest Passage in 2020. We've got the doubling Cape Horn 2021, where I went through Tropical Storm Wanda and damaged the boat. Those two, I think I can draw from some of the lessons I learned in those, but I don't know. When I read back through some of the journals and everything like that, I don't know. It's interesting, but I don't know. But the last one, the Disaster Voyage, I think partly because I have been doing that as a presentation for a couple of years now, and I do it quite often, and really try and get into everything seems real fresh. There's also the videos. I mean, I know I took down the vast majority of them from YouTube, but there was like a 6-part series that used to be up there, and I think I left the first 2 up, but then I took all the rest of them down. Just because I was like, man, people are paying me to tell this story. I don't think I should just have it up on YouTube. But in any event, so I have it pretty fresh in my head. Obviously, I've got the log books, and I've got the chart, and I have my journal entries and stuff like that. But it's still so that story is so visceral going through that storm. Not only that one, but going through the low pressure system and the Gulf of Maine, then getting pounded for days, reaching out into the Atlantic, and then sitting and making the decision to cross the stream, going through the night of the knockdown and the damage, and getting things sort of sorted there, and then finding yourself in this position where the sea is not just going to let you off after that, but you've got yet another system that you now have to outrun. And so there's sort of this kind of neat, there's a climax, obviously, I think, with the knockdown and everything. But then it's sort of like we've still got to get this boat that's definitely got some damage. We've got to get safely back to port, and those experiences, I think, intertwined with some of the lessons learned in all the sea voyages, that basically helped me make the decisions that I believe were the right ones to get me back. Essentially, I think that culminates in probably a pretty good book. I hope. We'll see. I mean, the first thing I like to do with this sort of stuff is always have an outline, just kind of bullet point sort of stuff. Once I finish that, I rework it for a little while. It's always going to be a work in progress because obviously the chapters sort of fill in, and I'll do it sequentially. Like we start, sometimes I'll do the one narrative about the story about just the trip, and then I'll pick apart the other chapters. But a lot of times I like to just start with chapter 1 and just write. And I know, the first draft is always, you go by those rules. What I was always told was just write. Don't worry about it. Just get the words on paper, get the story out there, because you're going to shape it and you're going to refine it and you're going to turn it into what it really should be over the bunch of iterations of editing and rewording and reworking all of it. And yeah, I kind of think one of the nice parts, obviously you have the advantage now of using AI to punch up. I mean, I've heard stories you can put a manuscript in there and be like, make this scarier, make this more descriptive, da da da, and it'll just do it. I don't think I would want to do anything like that, but I would definitely want to run the whole manuscript through something like Grammarly or something where it can go through and basically clean up all the grammatical errors that I am destined to make. The nice part is, having gone through the process back in the day with Sailing into Oblivion, I made all the mistakes you could ever make, and learned from all those mistakes, how I want that book to be prepared and ready for publication on Amazon. So it's not one of those things where, you're just throwing it out on Kindle and then down the line you're putting out the paperback and then you're editing it constantly and updating. I must have updated that book like 50 times until finally some dear sweet soul, Elizabeth, came out of the woodwork and edited it for me, which was fantastic. But it just went through so many iterations. It was so much work. It was insane. And then doing the audiobook and all that sort of stuff. And I realize now, if you're going to actually do this, the best thing and the way to go about it is you don't hit the publish button until you have it all finished. So you take the completed manuscript that you like, that you're ready to publish, and put on Kindle and put on as a paperback and hardcover and all that sort of stuff. Then you take that manuscript and you read it as an audiobook, because that, for me, essentially was probably the absolute final draft of that first book for me, because when you have to read it out loud, you catch every last little weird, odd thing. Now, mine had been edited before that, but I still caught a couple of things that I wanted to reword. And essentially, you could go and, as you're rewording them and recording it, because that's a lengthy process to be quite blunt. I've never had migraines in my life, but I definitely had a headache after every single day. And I was doing like 10-hour sessions trying to record and do all that. But I was also doing it in a place where there's a Marine base that flies jets. So a lot of the recordings had to be rerun and redone. But that is sort of, seems to me to be the process. Screw going and trying to get a publisher. I mean, that's a dying industry if I ever saw one. And I don't want to waste my time if I can just put it out on Amazon and then promote it myself. And if it's a page turner and people really like it, obviously, then I think that works out good for your old pal J-Rum. So we'll have to sort of see how this shapes up. But I guess the goal here, it's a little hard for me to sit on a tilted heeling boat that's bouncing through the sea at a computer and actually write. But doing an outline on paper is something that I can definitely do over the next week or 10 days while I'm making my way back. So I think the ideas and the outlines and stuff like that, maybe it's one of those things where I go a little more in-depth with the outline and try and really make a good flow and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, that I think will be a welcome little side project, not only for the rest of this trip, but also for the coming months, where I have a little bit of downtime in between the next consulting and coaching gigs, and then all the speaking stuff that's coming up. So, yeah, I don't know. Hooray! It's kind of exciting to finally pull the trigger a little bit and think about the possibilities of, my goal in the end, because I sat and thought about this for a long time, and my biggest impediment has always been time. Do we have the time? When I wrote the first book, it was really hinged on the fact that I was able to sail down to the Caribbean, sit at anchor, dedicate 3-4 hours every single day to it until that first draft was done. And I did it in between, Virgin Gorda and Dominica over 4 months, I think it took, something like that, to get the first draft done. And then the subsequent, editing and all that sort of stuff obviously took a very, very long time. I think, I don't know. Yeah, I don't even know. It took like a year or something like that. But I was also stumbling through the process, wasted a huge amount of time submitting it to all sorts of literary agents who then tell you no, 50 of them precisely for me, or the ones that tell you yes, tell you also yes, but we want to change everything about this so that it's actually not yours anymore. And I kept hearing Motissier in the back of my head, and knowing that he didn't even let the publishers edit his stuff. He just was like, no, this is my story. This is me on the page, my life, my adventure. And I think something like that rings true for me, because I don't ever expect one of these things to be like a bestseller, but what I hope they are is authentic enough that they're worthy of a bookshelf on a boat, or worthy of a bookshelf, in your house. I don't know. That to me, I think, is far more valuable in the end, and a bit of longevity with it. I mean, I think that would be very, very cool. Because, one of the nice parts, too, because we're in that transition where a lot of these things are all just going to be AI generated, basically, from now on, and already are being AI generated, well, I think there's going to be a niche market for books that are written by human beings and not interfered with by AI and punched up to a degree where, it's not really the same book anymore. So, yeah, I don't know. That's kind of my thought on it, at least at this point. But I guess the overarching goal, timeline-wise, would be to try and have everything finished. This is definitely a bit ambitious, but have it ready to go by December 1st of this year. So essentially that would give me 10 months or so to basically have it go from an outline to an audiobook, paperback, hardcover, and ebook ready by December 1st and have it available. I don't know. We'll have to sort of see. So kind of exciting. Like I said, pretty neat. But yeah, right now, though, I am just trying to enjoy this lovely ride. Boy, the sea is calming very quickly. I'm hoping that this big wind shift doesn't completely blow and destroy this. I think some of it's just because it's all relative. Like, it was pretty darn bouncy today. By this morning, I was like, holy cow. I mean, luckily I slept really well, but boy, you just get lumped around. It's wintertime in the Atlantic, so I don't know what I was expecting. I think my gripe really comes from the fact that it's not one wave train, it's three. I had waves from the north, from the east, and from the south, and that gets super. Or no, the west, the north, and the east. So that gets a little muddled and a little hard to deal with. It'll be really interesting once I do reach south and actually get into trade winds. The waves will probably be bigger. The swell will definitely be bigger, but it should be consistent and coming out of the same direction, which, unless there's some monster gale that forms north and spits out a big north swell. But even that is just, little double wave train or whatever. But we'll have to sort of see. But right now, I have to start like plotting and planning to try to really make the mark. I mean, I have ample time. I essentially am going to have like 15 days to make, around 800 miles. And I should be able to do that in like 8 days pretty easily. But that's if the easterly trades stay filled in, and then, by the time I get to the Bahamas, you get that typical southing in there, so that when I hit the Gulf Stream, I can just cross it, get to the marina, and clean up myself and the boat. Because the speaking event's on the 20th, I think, at this point. So I do have to kind of run the numbers, get the ETA down, and keep an eye on the weather, plot and plan. It's nice to have that bit of wiggle room, so if we do get a system that reaches pretty far south, we can go ahead and hove to and waste a few days if we need to, holding our position. And then once the winds become favorable again, then we can take right back off. Obviously, I wouldn't want to do that, but hey, you gotta go with the flow when you're out on the ocean this time of year. And yeah, it's been wonderful. Definitely getting in the zone at this point. Holy smokes, it's pretty incredible. It seems like each day now, for the past couple of days, I've just felt far more in tune, far more at peace with the motion of the ocean and the working of the sails and the cooking and the cleaning and all that sort of stuff. It just, it's one of those things where it always takes a little while to get acclimatized to life alone out on the ocean. But when you do, that low level input, it is miraculous. It feels so good, and it makes things like cranking back in my bunk and reading a book a really sort of fun event. Kind of that same way it feels when there's some like movie or something like that you really want to watch, that you've been waiting for to come out and whatever, and then you sort of, set the night up and you eat dinner, and then you're like getting comfy on the couch, and you press play, and it's sort of like, ooh, here we go. That's kind of the same feeling that I am feeling, level of excitement-wise, every time I hop back in the bunk and crack that baby open. So, not too bad. Not too bad at all. But all the supplies are holding up. Still got eggs, still got bacon, still got ham, still got lettuce. Actually, I can't even believe that. After taco night, though, dinners are going to get a little interesting, I guess. I have a bunch of Mountain House, and I have one little chicken cordon bleu thing. That I kind of got to just save in case things get so rolly. I just need to throw it in the oven. And I got cans of ravioli and some soups and things like that. Not the biggest fan of just eating soup for dinner. But I've got a decent amount of crackers. I still got some cheese. So there are a few things, but it is funny. Like, as you get, if I look in that fridge and I put the false floor in it, essentially, so that I cut in half the area in there, hoping to mitigate how much that compressor has to run. But unfortunately, I'm pretty sure this whole refrigeration it was like an ice box that has zero insulation around it. There's no way to access and actually look in there to see what's going on. I think it would have to be cut out to then be pulled out, insulated, and then put back in. I'm going to investigate that, though, because it sure would be nice. This thing definitely could use an upgrade as far as how cold it keeps things, and how often it has to kick on. But this, sun's been out. We've gotten a lot of juice out of her. We got up to like 13.9 today. Almost saw 14 volts. Still sitting at 12.8, and there's no more sun up or anything like that. So I think we're doing okay on the old electrical front. at present. The plumbing is all working well. We still have water in the forward tank, which means we probably still have at least like 40 or 50 gallons. Yeah, we're looking pretty darn good. Yeah, I'm hoping tomorrow, if the weather's a little less bouncy and stuff, if this continues, to do a little fishing, because as you know, the idea of dinner sort of cutting off, I had a huge flying fish again last night come onto the deck, and again I saved its life. Just didn't feel like eating it. I don't know. There's something about when I find them in the morning and they're big enough and they're not, as long as they're not stiff, then I will definitely cook and eat them if they're big enough. But if they're still flopping around, I'm kind of like, all right, let's get you back in the water, bud. I just have a big soft spot for these fish. Like a lot of times, I mean, the fishing line's been sitting there in the cockpit waiting to be used, and it's been a bit rough, so I don't really want to deal with cutting up a fish when it's bouncing around like that. But on the other side, a lot of times I'm just like, I don't want to kill a fish. I'll just eat a can of tuna. Which is kind of ironic, really. So who knows? Well, I'm blabbering now, so let's cut this off until something more exciting happens. Thanks for listening, and until next time.